I went with body horror. It really came from the premise. I sort of just had the idea of what if there was a couple that were so intertwined that they began to intertwine in their flesh and their blood. And I thought, oh, that's a horror movie. It wasn't that I sought out body horror, but I thought of that idea and I thought, oh, that could be a body horror. And I love body horror, so I was really excited. I'm a very sort of technically minded filmmaker, whereby obviously I want to tell stories about character and about emotion, but I'm only also interested in making something that's going to be challenging with practical effects and with visual effects, and I'm wanting to tell something that's kind of otherworldly and create visuals I've never seen before. And this was a way to kind of make a story kind of about my own real life, but also be in a genre that I loved. And as well as telling a story of a couple coming together, I was also like, oh, I can think of like 10 crazy body horror scenes that I can put into this, and that was really exciting to me. Yeah. From the jumping off point, I thought that this was a clear premise where I could explore themes that are close to my heart, having been in a long-term relationship and having a friendship group that's full of similarly long-term relationships. But as I said, I wouldn't be interested in doing a straight drama. That's just not what I'm good at and not what I'm interested in. Like I want to make something that's full of practical effects, full of visual effects, and it being a horror film allowed me to kind of amp up those emotions. One of the things I love about horror is that you can tell stories that are really relatable, that are really about real people and the real world, but by adding the supernatural element, you can just amp it up into operatic heights that you maybe can't do in a more straight real world drama. And it kind of allowed me to explore these themes that I'm interested in, but also kind of get my rocks off as a technical weird freak that wanted to kind of build puppets and do that sort of thing. Yeah, I love Cronenberg, love Society, love the works of Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna. This was an opportunity to kind of celebrate this subgenre of body horror that I love so much. But I was really keen to make it feel aesthetically like a modern film, whereby I think a lot of modern body horror feels like the body horror itself is very ironic. It's kind of done a little sarcastically, like very, very stylized, whilst I wanted this to kind of play the body horror pretty straight and make it feel like what body horror would look like in a modern setting, but then have the characters react in a realistic way to what's going on, and from that kind of derive the comedy, rather than finding the comedy from the horror sequences itself. It's very, very flattering to have this film brought up in the same vein as, Cronenberg or more modern films like Society, The Substance, not Society. Society isn't modern, but I love all that stuff. I mean, it's been wonderful being at Sitges because Barbara Crampton's here. I got to meet Barbara Crampton 2 days ago. I'm like, what the hell? I love her. She's one of my teenage crushes. It's so good, so great. From Reanimator and From Beyond, what an icon. And she's seen the movie and she liked it. I was like, okay, great. I can die now. That's fine. I think that's really true. And it was obviously a conscious choice to move these characters from the city into the country because, again, working on the thematic, on the metaphorical, that's what it feels like to kind of fully commit to somebody that you kind of close off the rest of the world and it just becomes you and them. And so to literalize that by having them live in a place where it really is just the two of them, it sort of exacerbated the issues in their relationship, but also spoke to the idea of making that choice to share a life with somebody, to just be me and her or her and him. And I think rural life really speaks to that. It's also very horror related, whereby most horror movies take place in the country where you can't get help. Everybody loses their phone in Act 1, and nobody can find the police. So it's kind of speaks to that as well. To your restless heart, you're open. Yeah, we didn't have much rehearsal time in a traditional way because we didn't have sort of the money for it, and also they live in America and I live in Australia. So we spoke for months on Zoom before we started the filming process. So by the time that they were in the country, we had a little bit of rehearsals, but they knew the script backwards and forwards, and they're producers on the film, so they had so much invested in it creatively, and they were just so they really gave it their all. And them being a married couple was amazing, because we only had 21 days to shoot the film, which is very short for the kind of scope, the ambition of the movie. But them being a married couple meant that they had this shorthand, because they're not only married, but they've worked together on other films before. And, we didn't have the luxury of being able to waste time. So, as soon as we started the day, they needed to be at a 10, because the film is every single day they're like throwing their bodies around, or they're screaming, or they're emotionally at a 10, they're physically at a 10, and they were just able to turn it on because they loved the project so much, they were so invested, but also they have such a bond, such a trust that we didn't have to find the chemistry. The chemistry was already there, so that was a huge boon for the film.
Praise be to this useless love.
Yeah, it's from Plato's Symposium, where he wrote about the idea that initially people were two people combined as one in their perfect form. I think it's where the term soulmate comes from. Is from that. And I'll be honest, that wasn't in the first draft of the script. It was something that I kind of felt like there's a thing in horror movies often where, like, they go to a school class and somebody's teaching like literature, and they kind of, explain like something that's about the theme of the movie. And I literally Googled something like ancient myth, two people merged or something, and that came up, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like it was perfect. And so I found it and then put it into the script. And it's in some 90s rom-com as well. I forget what it is, but Dave and Allison watched a movie when they arrived in Australia to do it. Like the night before we started filming the movie, they watched some 90s rom-com where they also referenced Plato's Symposium, the same soulmate myth, and we were like, this is kismet, this is amazing, something's happening here. So yeah, it was a very lucky find. So thank you, Plato. Yeah, I think that love is forever if you find the right place. I know you're married. I've met your husband, and I've been with my partner, I said, for 17 years, and we're about to have our first child together, and it does feel like love is forever. The people that I've loved and lost still kind of live in my heart, and it's which, forever is a scary thing. It's a lovely thing, but it's a scary thing to kind of fully accept. So that's why I think it is good, ripe territory for a horror film, but ultimately I think the film has a pretty positive message about love that, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's worth the sacrifice. Definitely, I think it's almost like a little bit of a Rorschach test, this film, whereby I think we've had people in relationships come up to myself and Dave and Allison after screenings and say like, oh, this has really helped us out with an argument we were having, or that they find it to be quite pro-love, but there's single people that are like, oh, this movie is great, it really justified my choice to be single. That the whole film really begins at a place, it's kind of like a rom-com in its structure, whereby you meet these characters that maybe don't get along at the beginning, and you kind of hope that they're going to get on by the end. And in order to kind of explore that, you need the relationship stuff to be horrific and terrifying. And I think it is a compelling argument to stay single for a lot of it. But you kind of hope that by the end the characters maybe can throw off the BS in their relationship and find common ground and maybe commit to love. And so as somebody that's been in a very long-term monogamous relationship, that my heart is telling me that the end of the film is kind of a romantic ending. It's about sacrificing that individuality and thinking that maybe sacrificing something of yourself is worth it for love at the end. But it's also very scary to sacrifice part of yourself. When I sort of really first had the idea, when I was trying to kind of beat out what the structure would be, the more obvious choice felt like that in the third act we would make one of the characters the villain. Like it would make like Tim probably the bad guy that Millie had to like escape from, and I just wasn't really interested in that, because that wasn't really on theme to me. What the theme felt like to me was, are you going to make this choice to fully commit to somebody? And that's sort of what they're faced with at the end. And I I think that even though the ending is maybe not the most, you know, downbeat or the most horrific, the final image of the film I think is pretty crazy, and I think I really like the idea of my favorite film critic is a guy called Lex G, and he spoke about once with films that even if it's a bad movie, sometimes there's movies that have an ending that leave you floating on air. And I was kind of thinking, I like that a lot. I love the idea that maybe this ending makes people kind of leave feeling like they're floating on air, where we have this kind of crazy image that's sort of positive, and then we kind of cut to credits with this upbeat pop song by Golden Suits playing, and I kind of think that like people hopefully leave feeling like they've gone through hell, but kind of think, oh, maybe we had a good time. Like that was kind of fun.